Hello, friends. I've heard that you were wondering about yokai. I thought that possibly, instead of going into a lot of detail about them, since it's almost night, I could sit down with you, enjoy some tea, and read you a little bedtime story from this book. And if afterwards you still want to learn more, I could read you another at a later night. Alright then. Before we start, let me add some sweetener to my tea. There we go. Just one packet is good. This is jasmine tea, by the way. It smells very nice. Going to leave that there. I suppose I will need to let it cool a little before I can start drinking. Start with the story and I'll take a sip in a moment. Alright, so to give you a look, I have this and I have a few other sources I can read from as well for you, if we somehow get through this eventually. But let's see where we go. Yokai stories. This picture here is of a creature called a tengu. I don't know whether or not you are familiar, but at least for now I'm starting to introduce you to the timers and we can sort of look at things about them or just learn as we continue our journey. Now, the contents here. Introduction concerning yokai. Number 1. Akira and the Three Kappa. Number 2. Mariko and the Akashita. Number 3. Maya and the Baku. Number 4. Miyuki's new job. Number 5. The cave of the Joraguma. Number 6. Conversation with Keiyukegan. Number 7. Shigeru and the Kitsune girl. Number 8. The lore of the Nure Onna. Number 9. The smile of the Ohaguro Betari. Number 10. The dead wife. Number 11. Mohan and the Oni. Number 12. The woes of the Onyudo. Number 13. Kin and the Tanuki dance. Number 14. The Tengu and the birds. There's that creature I mentioned to you at the beginning. Number 14. Sukumono... sorry. I was thinking of a different word. Sukumogami's birthday. Sukumogami birthday. Number 16. Anna and the One Yudo. Those are the stories in this. So, introduction. Concerning yokai. The world is full of monsters. Big ones and small ones. Scaly ones and furry ones. Funny ones and scary ones. Some look like animals. Some are almost human. Some are anything but. Monsters come in every shape and size, limited only by your imagination. and they have always been with us. Every culture and every era creates their own monsters. These monsters go by many different names in many different languages. In Japan, they are called yokai. Yokai are as much a part of Japan as sushi and samurai, as geisha and Godzilla. The Japanese have been telling yokai stories for thousands of years. There is no sign they will ever stop. In modern Japan, yokai are everywhere. You can see movies and cartoons about yokai. You can read books about yokai. There are hundreds of yokai video games. Yokai food like kitsune udon and tanuki soba are based on Japan's magical foxes and raccoon dogs. I can actually tell you a bit of the story behind kitsune udon someday if you want to know. Though if you'd like to try deciphering that on your own, I can tell you that it concerns the harvest goddess Inari. Anyway, yokai are in TV commercials and in comic books. They are on restaurant sides and clothing line. Yokai are even on toilet paper. Really? I didn't know that. Yokai can be almost anything. They are piles of garbage come to life. They are devils from the darkest pits of hell. They are unnatural wind in old trees. Some, like the kappa, have complicated stories and deep mythology. Some, like the akashta, have no stories at all. They are just a line or two accompanying a picture. They can be native to Japan or imported from somewhere else. They can be ancient folklore or creations of modern pop culture. While every country loves their monsters, Japan seems to love them a little bit more. Japan is monster country. In Japan, stories about yokai can be as random as the monsters themselves. Traditional tales are rarely complete stories, with a beginning, middle, or end. They don't teach lessons or morals. Most yokai stories are a recognition of wonder. They delight in the weird. They embrace shadows and the unexplainable parts of the world. And most importantly, yokai stories are often told as true stories. Japan has always embraced belief in yokai, even when common sense says not to. The collection of yokai can continually grow and change. As old yokai are forgotten, new ones appear, and they travel. Yokai escape their home country to become part of world culture. Games like Pokemon and Yokai Watch, and movies like Godzilla, Spirited Away, and My Neighbor Totoro have made yokai familiar across the world. It's not unusual to see kappa pop up in American comics, or for Jorogumo Spider-Woman to appear on Western TV shows. The excellent weirdness of yokai transcends boundaries. Here's proof. Japan's yokai inspired a Swiss artist and an American writer to make this book. In recognition of this international mix, our own yokai stories are set neverwhere and never when. This isn't Japan, but isn't quite anywhere else. It's our own mishmash world, like the tales that inspired them. These yokai stories can be complete or just fragments. The stories invite readers to fill in the rest with their imagination. And like yokai themselves, the tales are a mix of new and old. Although updated in language and setting, some are very old indeed. The Dead Wife comes from a 12th century book called Konjaku Monogatari, Tales of Times Now Past. Reading out loud sometimes, but just to say that again, it is Konjaku Monogatari, Tales of Times Now Past. Quinn in the Tanuki Dance is adopted from the Edo period story, The Procession of the Tanuki, which is known as one of the 7 wonders of Honjo. The story of Shigeru and the Kitsune Girl is liberally adapted from The Loving Fox, from the 1254 book Tokonchomunji. The title means things seen and heard, old and new. And Confession Time. I couldn't resist giving the loving fox a happy ending. In the original tale, the poor fox girl dies. Some like the lazy boy and the kappa in Akira and the Three Kappa are a blend of multiple stories with added twists. And some are new yokai stories entirely of our own invention. I leave it up to you to decide which is which. All stories in this book share one thing. They are inspired by the brilliant art of Eleonora D'Onofrio. Eleonora and I met on the internet, a very modern way to share a love of things very old. When I saw her yokai art, I was taken with her unique style. Her paintings didn't seem bound to time or place, and the yokai in her art looked like they had something to say. Every picture seemed to be bursting with stories. To make this book, I took Eleonora's art and did my best to find those stories. Instead of an illustrated story, you could say these are storyfied illustrations. The art was the beginning, the story the end. Together, this is our love letter to the wonderful world of yokai. It is also our own small part in adding a chapter or two to the never-ending book of yokai stories. Zach Dapson. Wasn't that nice? Before I start in the story, I'm going to try to take a sip of the tea, although it still feels very hot. It's good. Just no, it can't be. Alright. Number 1. Akira and the Three Kappa. Akira never wanted to do anything. At least, that's what his mother thought. His father, and his brother, and sisters, and his teacher, and his... you get the idea. He never wanted to play sports. He never wanted to go camping, or to the beach, or to his friend's house. He never wanted to do his homework. If his family went to a baseball game, or a picnic, or a movie, he whimpered about not wanting to go. But Akira didn't see this as a problem. It wasn't that he hated all that stuff. He just loved to read. When Akira came home from school, he dropped his coat on the floor, went straight to his room, and grabbed a book off the shelf. He sank into books the way you might settle into a warm bath, soaking up ideas and facts and fantasies. When his mother told him he needed to get out more, to do things, Akira didn't see the point. Nothing out there was better than what was in a book. What Akira dreaded most was warm summer days. No one cared what you did when it was pouring outside. No one yelled at you when it was dark and cold. But as soon as a yellow sun popped up in the blue sky, his mother would glare at him. Seeing her son curled up on the sofa, nose wedged into a book, his mother would say the thing Akira hated most to hear. Akira, go do something. Go outside and play. After a useless revolt, Akira would find himself kicked out the door, blinking in the sunshine. His mom would pack him a lunch and a bottle of water, and tell him not to come home until sundown. Then he would fall into the one thing he didn't mind doing outside. Akira liked to walk and read. Setting his feet on one of the many paths in the forest near his home, Akira would hold a book up to his face like a shield and just start walking. Today, like any other day, off he went. It must have been a particularly good book. There were dragons and gold and a collection of dwarves. Akira just kept walking and walking and walking, not paying the slightest bit of attention to where he was going. He walked past trees and bushes and rocks. He walked past bugs and critters and mushrooms, all without noticing. He was so deep into his book that he didn't even see the thing lying across his path until he tripped over it. His book went flying while Akira tumbled into the dirt. The warmness feels nice. Always good to drink some tea at night. What was that? Akira said. It was a body, small and green, child-size with scaly skin, like a turtle crossed with a monkey. Akira had read enough old folk stories to know a kappa when he stumbled upon one. His grandmother, Nunoi, had loved telling old tales. She had given him a collection of folklore books when he was young. Reading all his books had given Akira an open mind on monsters. After all, if there could be a monster in Loch Ness and a hairy Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, why not a kappa in the forest? Stranger things did happen. Although this stranger thing was almost too strange. One thing Akira knew about kappa was they shouldn't be away from the water. They had little bowls on their head, and if that bowl dried out, the kappa would die. This one looked pretty close. Only a damp sheen glistened in a bowl that should have been full of water. Akira thought he was lucky to find the kappa on dry land. He knew what kappa did to kids when they caught swim or caught swimming in the creek. They had a fondness for human liver and weren't too fussy about how they got it. They stuck their hands in and yanked it out. Akira immediately sat down. A real kappa, Akira said. Who would have thought? He grabbed a nearby stick and poked it. He first tapped on its turtle shell. After a few raps, he got courageous enough to poke it in the soft bits. With the fifth poke, the kappa exhaled suddenly, its breath smelling like soft ground after a summer rain. A single eye slowly winked open from the scaled face. Its beak began to move. "Help me!" the kappa whispered. "Help you?" Akira scooched back, startled by the strange creature suddenly speaking to him. "No way, I know what kappa do." "Not that. Please, help me. I promise, anything. Nearby is a river. I have two brothers that live there. Each of them, he wheezed, it has a great treasure. Take me there, and I promise you can have what you like. You can choose, please." Akira knew enough about magical creatures to know that with them, a promise is a promise. They may be evil and nasty and rip out your liver to eat, but they would never do anything as disgusting as break their word. So he took out his water bottle and poured some of the water into the kappa's bowl. The change in the creature was fantastic. He leapt straight up from the ground and did a fast-paced jig. Then it grabbed the bottle and poured all the water into its bowl. The kappa looked at Akira with inhuman eyes. "And now for you," the kappa smiled, its voice slightly menacing. It knew Akira was afraid. "Hey, you promised." Akira jumped backwards. "And a promise is a promise," the kappa smiled in its best attempt to look trustworthy. "Walk with me, and we'll come to the bridge over a river. My two brothers are there. When we arrive, I'll swim out first and talk to them. They'll know not to harm you. Then you can have your pick of their treasure to take home. Whatever you wish." Akira was wary, but followed behind the monster. The kappa skipped along at a steady pace. Sure enough, they came to a river. A bridge crossed over exactly as the kappa had described. Seeing its home, the kappa was so happy that it sped up, running as fast as it could. It plunged straight into the water. "Hey now, if you're lying and trying to get away..." The kappa popped its head up from the water, looking back. "Trust me," it said. "I'll be right back." The boy soon saw something emerge from the water. Well, three somethings, including the kappa that Akira had rescued. However, where that kappa had been, and friendly and small, its two brothers were huge and menacing. Their skin was rough and deeply scaled. Their elbows and knees were bony and hooked. The oldest brother glared at Akira with menacing eyes. "We hear that you rescued our little brother, and that he made you a promise," the eldest brother croaked. "Well, a promise made is a promise kept. We have two treasures for you to choose from." The biggest kappa reached into the water and produced a heavy wooden mallet. It looked old, very old, and radiated power. "This mallet is magic," the kappa said. "Take it and strike a stone. A single grain of rice will appear. If you shout the name of someone before you strike the mallet, then that thing will appear. If you shout the name of something before you strike the mallet, then that thing will appear. Gold, diamond, horses, even pizza. Your every wish is yours." Akira looked at the mallet and knew the kappa was telling the truth. But then he thought back to some books he had read. It seemed he heard a story once about a boy who got a magic hammer that gave him everything he wanted. It was great at first. His parents were overjoyed. But then Akira remembered the boy's parents became greedy. They took the hammer and used it to make themselves rich. The neighbors heard of the fortune and tried to kill the family and steal the hammer. Akira couldn't remember all the details of the story, but he was sure everyone came to a very bad end. The magic mallet didn't bring any happiness at all, just greed. I don't think so," Akira replied. "What else do you have?" The second kappa, a little bit smaller, but no less thorny and burly than his brother, reached into the water and produced an oyster. Gently wedging the oyster open, he pulled a small hard case. The case looked like it was made of ebony, with a skeleton carved on the lid. From inside the case he withdrew a tiny needle. It was like a sewing needle, and glinted in the sunlight. "This is the resurrection needle," the kappa said, its voice ready and thin. "A great powerful artifact. If you prick a dead person with this needle, they come back to life. You had a beloved grandmother once, didn't you? In just a little poke you can have her back, baking you cookies and reading you stories just like she used to." This one made Akira's heart cry with longing. He did love his grandmother Nunoe, and thought there could be no greater treasure than having her back. But he remembered the stories she told him, like one about a boy who got a magic needle that could bring people back to life. It seemed amazing and wonderful at first, but as so often happened in these stories, things turned out badly. The dead were not happy about being brought back. Living people heard about it and tried to take the needle from the boy. Wars were fought. Far more people died fighting for the needle than were brought back by it. Akira was pretty sure the boy committed suicide at the end. It was one of the most terrible stories. He didn't like to think about that one at all. "No, I don't think so," Akira shuddered to himself. "Well, we must give you something," said the kappa Akira had rescued. Compared to his two brothers, this kappa was much less frightening. He almost looked friendly, if you can call such a monster friendly. He too reached into the water and brought up a little sack. He put his hand inside and pulled out something green. "Here," it said, holding out a cucumber. "What is that?" "A cucumber." Akira knew that kappas loved cucumbers. Kappa loved cucumbers. Because there's no plurals in Japanese, and I believe they tried to stick to that, which is cool. It was their favorite food. In fact, it was said that if you wanted to befriend local kappa, you had to write your name on a cucumber and drop it into a river. At least that was what the stories said. But still, is it some sort of magic cucumber? Akira asked. Does it turn mud into gold or grow a magic beanstalk? Can it be eaten forever without running out? Something like that? Nope, just a cucumber, it said. I stole it from a farmer this morning. That's where I was going to try to get some more. But I got lost on the path and wandered where you found me. No magic at all? No surprises? Nothing. It's a particularly ordinary cucumber, but quite delicious. I ate two of its fellows today, and they were scrumptious. That farmer knows what he's doing. Akira thought and thought and racked his brain, going through all the stories he had ever heard. Sure, there were stories of magic vegetables and people coming to bad end, or living happily ever after, depending on where the story was written. But a plain, ordinary cucumber? Akira had to admit that he had never heard of a single bad thing that ever happened to a kid who ate their vegetables. Okay, said Akira. With that, the third Kappa swam over and handed Akira the cucumber. Akira was nervous to get that close to a kappa in water. The story told exactly what could happen, but the kappa did as he'd said, never once threatening Akira. The boy took the cucumber and had to admit that it did look very nice. Magic or not, it was a fine vegetable. He was about to eat the cucumber when he saw the sad look on the kappa's face. It couldn't quite frown, but the beaky mouth had a definite downcast look to it, a twist in the corners. Akira understood that Kappa really didn't want to part with his treasure. That the Kappa really didn't want to part with his treasure. But a promise was a promise. Feeling sorry for it, Akira snapped the cucumber in two and offered the Kappa half. Here. Thank you, the Kappa said, shocked at the offered delight. He reached for the cucumber shyly, taking it from Akira. The Kappa grinned as much as his beaky mouth allowed. Lunging happily on the cucumber, he jumped back into the water. The Kappa saw him about halfway to the middle of the river when he suddenly turned around and waved back at Akira. If you want to come play with me sometime, I won't mind, the Kappa said, its beak mouth almost smiling. I won't kill you. I promise, it said, plunging into the water and swimming away to wherever Kappa lived. Akira smiled too, tracing back his path. He picked up his book from where it had been thrown and went walking home, satisfied with how things had turned out, munching on his cucumber. He had the oddest feeling. Somehow he knew that when he got home, he wouldn't read a book. It seemed like for the first time in his life, instead of reading about someone else's adventure, he had his own. He laughed at the idea. His mom would be so proud. He finally did something. Instead of reading a book when he got home, this time, Akira thought to himself, maybe he would do something else. Maybe he would write a book instead. There's a little book in the corner. And that is that story. Also, he did sort of have the right intuition in that, at least from my understanding. Despite their strange eating habits, kappas tend to be pretty honorable creatures. In stories, at least. Though you, of course, can believe what you will. And now, on that note, I think I will turn off the light and settle down. As I said, it is almost time for bed. Good night, everyone.